a former DOJ attorney filed a protected whistleblower complaint accusing Deputy AG Emil Bove and senior DOJ leadership of defying court orders, including through, quote, lack of candor, deliberate delay, and disinformation, unquote. The complaint also accuses this administration of firing the whistleblower for, quote, telling the truth to the court. These allegations are deeply concerning. Now, I know you said that you can't discuss the case, but can you confirm that you agree that this administration should follow court orders?
We will follow court orders, Senator. The entire administration will follow court orders. The problem arises in the district courts. All these district courts throughout the country are tying our hands. But here's how we will follow them when we get to the United Supreme Court.
I need to ask
we're winning.
A number of questions.
And so, yes, we're following the orders of the court.
Let me ask my questions. Can you confirm you will not allow any conduct like what is alleged to continue at the DOJ?
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Emil Bove's hearing today.
I'm not asking
highly
about that
suspicious.
Case
Hold on, let me keep going.
Attorney
I would
General
run
Bondi,
through a wall for
my
Emil
time,
Bove
Mr. Chairman,
and
and I
Todd
would like
Blanche.
to continue with my questions. I have very limited time. Thank you. I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
I will always support and defend Emil Bove, and I will defend Todd Blanche. They are two of the finest people I know and two of the ethical people I know.
I was asking about the conduct. Let me keep going here. Now, in April, DOJ abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already gone through a very rigorous and fair and apolitical application process with no explanation. This is funding to investigate and prosecute drug trafficking, to support foster care kids who experienced abuse or neglect, to expand access to forensic exams to prosecute violent crimes like sexual assault. These really senseless cancellations have already forced public safety organizations to cut employees and services. So I want to ask you, when you cut off the community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative funding, were you aware it is used to prevent and reduce violent crime?
Yeah, Senator, you weren't here for that, so I'm going to have to repeat myself. We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%. But if we have cut a grant that you feel should not be cut, please reach out to me. I will personally look at it. We've turned multiple grants back on. Okay. We have an appeal process. But if you want to come to me directly, I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that and help you.
I'm happy. I appreciate that.
Again, we're doing everything we can.
Okay. The allegations were serious. Claims of ignoring court orders, misleading the courts, and retaliating against someone for speaking out. From where I sat, this was a moment where everything narrowed down to one key question. Will this administration follow the law? Bondi's response came quickly. Yes, the administration will follow court orders. But almost immediately, she added something else. She suggested the real issue lies with lower courts and made it clear that the administration would ultimately rely on the Supreme Court to resolve those disputes. Murray didn't let that redirect the conversation. She pressed again, asking whether Bondi would prevent the kind of conduct described in the whistleblower complaint. But instead of directly addressing the allegation, Bondi pivoted. She defended Emil Bove and Todd Blanche, calling them trustworthy and standing firmly behind them. Sitting there, I remember thinking that answer wasn't going to satisfy the question being asked. And Murray clearly felt the same way. She moved on, shifting the focus to something more concrete. Funding. She brought up the cancellation of hundreds of public safety grants, programs tied to fighting drug trafficking, supporting abused children, prosecuting violent crimes. From where I sat, this part of the exchange felt grounded in real-world impact. Murray asked directly, were you aware of what these programs actually do before cutting them? Bondi's response was more measured this time. She said only a small percentage of grants had been cut and emphasized that there's an appeal process. She even offered to personally review any specific cases Murray raised. But when Murray pressed on specific programs, like funding for sexual assault forensic exams, Bondi admitted she wasn't familiar with that particular grant. That moment stood out to me because it shifted the conversation from broad policy to specific consequences.
Let me just ask you, when you cut off the expanding access to sexual assault forensic examination grant, were you aware that that grant helps our authorities prosecute rape and sexual assault?
I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about. That's why I said, if you want to come sit down with me, I would never cut a grant intentionally that has anything to
those
do.
Recipients on the other end across the country.
Can you give me the details of that grant?
I can absolutely do that, and my staff will get that to you, but those are two critical ones that I just wanted to ask you about today.
Again, we've turned many grants back on, and we'll continue to. If you want to call me, and we can discuss them with you.
Okay, in your budget request, you propose consolidating the Office on Violence Against Women into the Office of Justice Programs. In 2002, Congress actually codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office to implement the Violence Against Women Act. We did that to make sure that violent crimes against women receive the necessary attention, expertise, and resources, and to give the office a strong, independent voice within the Justice Department and federal government. Now, your department wants to fade that into the OJP, which violates the intent of the law that we passed. It makes grant programs less effective, and it places a lot more barriers for victims and services they need. And I see that you're cutting the office's resources by about a third. So will you commit to us, the Appropriations Committee, to follow the law and maintain OVW as a separate grant entity?
I will follow the law, but I will not keep that as a separate grant entity. You and I can disagree all day long on what the law is.
Well,
that's being consolidated into the Office of Justice Programs. I'm not going to cut, let me answer, I'm not going to cut anything that's going to hurt violence against
not
women.
My question.
It will eliminate
I'm asking, just for your information, Attorney General, in 2002, we codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office. So that you need to go back and take a look at that.
But when Murray pressed on specific programs, like funding for sexual assault forensic exams, Bondi admitted she wasn't familiar with that particular grant. That moment stood out to me because it shifted the conversation from broad policy to specific consequences. Then came another major issue, the restructuring of the Office on Violence Against Women. Murray explained why Congress had made that office independent in the first place, to ensure focus, resources, and a strong voice for addressing violence against women. She argued that folding it into another department would weaken its effectiveness and reduce support for victims. And then she asked a key question, will you follow the law and keep it independent? Bondi's answer was clear, but not in the way Murray wanted. She said she would follow the law, but she would still move forward with consolidating the office. From where I sat, that was one of the most telling moments of the exchange, because it showed that even when both sides say they are following the law, they are operating from completely different interpretations of what that law requires. As Murray's time ran out, she made one final point, reminding Bondi that Congress had explicitly made that office independent back in 2002. And just like that, it ended. No resolution, no agreement, just two very different views of how the Justice Department should operate. Sitting there, it felt like this exchange wasn't about one issue. It was about control, accountability, and the boundaries of power. And more than anything, it showed how far apart both sides are on what justice is supposed to look like right now.